it's February 1st, 2026, at our unusual Sunday feast because of the weather for Nugoloka, Hillsborough, North Carolina. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskajadeshatarane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Panchakalpachubhischa Kripasindriya Bhajapati Tanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So today is the very auspicious anniversary of the appearance in this world of a great saintly person in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. So this personality, Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura, has written many wonderful songs and meditations, and we're going to meditate on one of them a little ways into the class. But first we wanted to look at something about his life. So Narottama Dasa Thakura was born around 1534, we're not sure of the exact date, in what's presently Bangladesh, and he was the son of Krishna Nanda Datta, who was a very wealthy and powerful ruler. And from the time he was a little boy, he showed great devotion to Krishna. Now, before he appeared, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was once walking in that area by the Padma River, and he said, Narottam, Narottam, Narottam. And the devotee said, what are you talking about? And Lord Chaitanya said, there is a great personality who's going to appear who will be called Narottam. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to bathe in the Padma River, and there, as soon as he went to bathe in the river, the water overflowed, and the personality of the Padma River came before him and said, how may I serve you, dear Lord? And Lord Chaitanya said, I'm going to put the love I have for God, because Lord Chaitanya, although he's Krishna himself, he's Krishna in the role of a devotee. So he's Krishna in the role of giving love of God. So he says, I'm going to deposit my love of God here in this river. And when Narottam comes, I want you to give it to him. And Padma, in her personified form, says, how will I know who is Narottam? And Lord Chaitanya said, when whoever bathes in this river makes your banks overflow the way I have, you will know that there is Narottam, and you can give him prema. So Narottam was always very interested in spiritual subject matters, highly intelligent, and he heard about Lord Chaitanya, who is no longer physically on the earth, and he very much was attracted to Lord Chaitanya. And one day, of course, he went to bathe in the Padma River, at which point the river overflowed and he became filled with love of God. It is said that at that time his complexion changed so much that even his parents at first didn't recognize him. Yeah. And he was the only son of his parents, and because his father was a ruler, his father wanted him to become the heir and take over the kingdom. But Narottam had no such interest, and he became a renunciate when he was 16. And at that time, he basically ran away from home when he was 16 and became a renunciate, so he wouldn't be saddled with family responsibilities and royal responsibilities. He had a cousin, Santosh, who ended up taking over the kingdom. And then he thought, well, if I go to Navadvip, if I go to Bengal or Orissa to see the devotees of Lord Chaitanya there, then that's the first place my parents will look for me. They'll find me, they'll drag me home. I'm only 16. So the only place I can go where they won't look for me will be Vrindavan. So he took the long journey. That was quite a long journey from present-day Bangladesh to go to Vrindavan by foot. And when he arrived, he took shelter of the 6 Goswamis there. He especially studied under Srila Jiva Goswami. And he very much wanted to find a guru, and he was drawn to Lokanath Goswami, who had been told by Lord Chaitanya previously that he should make Narottam a disciple once he met Narottam. But Lokanath Goswami was like, I don't want to be a guru. I don't want to have any disciples. I don't want to take the responsibility of training anybody, right? I'm sure many of us have run into this kind of situation in our life when we're asked to take up some responsibility in spiritual life. And we think, oh, it's just going to be so much trouble and so much work. And I don't know if I really want to do that and take up this. So Lokanath Goswami was like, I don't want to train a disciple. I don't want to have the responsibility of a disciple. So when Narottam asked him, he said, I'd like to become your disciple. He said, no, I'm not taking any disciples. So Narottam was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to soften the heart of this person I want as my guru? So he would see there would, in those days, people didn't have, they certainly didn't use indoor toilets in India, or they didn't use like outhouses. They would have like a field or an area where they would evacuate. So he noticed where Lokanath Goswami was going to evacuate every day, and he would clean the area. And he did this for about a year. And then Lokanath was, who's cleaning my area? And he sees it's Narottam. And he says, why are you doing this? He says, I want to be your disciple. And Lokanath's like, I'm not going to take any disciples. And then he has a dream where Lord Chaitanya comes to him and says, I told you to take Narottam as your disciple. So the Lokanath did initiate Narottam into the Vaishnava Diksha mantras, although he told him, he said, you're going to be my only disciple. So he studied, as I said, he studied under Srila Jiva Goswami, and he became very good friends with Srinivas Acharya and Shamananda. So the three of them were all living in Vrindavan as students of Srila Jiva Goswami, and they became very, very tight, very, very good friends. Now, Narottam would engage in a deep meditation on the spiritual world through chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and the Vaishnava Diksha mantras and living in Vrindavan, studying under Srila Jiva Goswami, studying under Lokanath Goswami. He had a realization of his eternal form in the spiritual world. And what he realized was that his a part of his eternal service was to make things out of milk, to boil milk and make different preparations out of milk. I was cooking earlier today and I was boiling some milk. So he was doing this as his eternal service. And in his meditation, uh, one time when he was dealing with the pot, it touched him and there was a burn in his meditation. And when he came out of his trance, he noticed that his physical arms were also burnt. There's a similar story in the Nectar Devotion about one Ramana who would meditate in his mind upon doing service for the deity, and once went to touch a pot of sweet rice to see if it was cool enough to offer, burned his finger in his meditation, and when he came out of his trance, saw that his physical finger was burnt. Anyway, the devotees in Vrindavan, they're like, what happened to your arms? And he didn't know how to explain that this was something that occurred in meditation. So at a certain point, Srila Jiva Goswami collected the various books that the Goswamis were writing. Now, these books were extremely, and continue to be, extremely important. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only wrote 8 verses. He didn't write books. And they were books written later about him, like Krishnadas Kaviraj writing the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita about him. But he himself didn't write books. And he gave instructions, especially to Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami, to whom he gave vast knowledge of philosophy and practice, to please take the knowledge he had given them and write them into books. So the Goswamis had written all these books. And of course, in those days, writing books was not with a word processor on a computer. You were writing by hand on leaves. Very delicate operation, and there's just like one copy. And so these books were packed up in a trunk, and Narottama Dasa Thakura, Srinivasacharya, and Shamananda were carrying these books back to Bengal and Orissa, and they were going to be given to the devotees who would then make copies and distribute. So on the way, there was one king, Virambir, and he had some mystic advisor who said to him, hey, people are coming with a great treasure, meaning the books. And so Virambir told them to steal the treasure. So they stole the books. Now, the books were recovered, and that had a very happy ending. But anyway, Naruto went on his own way. And when he left, the last thing he knew about the books were that they were stolen. Aditi Narayan, if you could please mute people who are making lots of noise. So he went back to his childhood home, and uh, there he started teaching what he had learned, and he started making a lot of disciples. It's very significant that two of his disciples went to Manipur and actually started Lord Chaitanya's movement in Manipur. So even today, the prominent religious system that is existent in Manipur is that of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And the followers of Lord Chaitanya became so powerful in Manipur. The government officials were all devotees of Lord Chaitanya. That's not true right now, but it was true for quite a very long time. I visited Manipur in, I think it was 2014. I was there for maybe about a week. And while I was there, there was a drama I saw that was about historical and political, but it was mixed with love for Krishna in the mood of Lord Chaitanya, and it was all mixed with Lord Chaitanya's teachings about Vrindavan and about love for Krishna. It's just wonderful. Srila Prabhupada encouraged one of his disciples, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, who was from a devotee family in Manipur, to take this Manipuri culture and spread it all over the world with the hope that the Manipur state could become, again, a Gaudiya Vaishnava state. So that's kind of a little side note from these disciples of Narottama Dasa Thakura. So the traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavas are followers of Narottama Dasa Thakura. Of course, we also have some ISKCON centers there that were started by Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. So how was Narottama Dasa Thakura, he didn't have the books, how was he going to really spread Lord Chaitanya's teachings? So he really started doing this through Sankirtan and through writing songs and writing meditations. And he would write them in Bengali language. And he really developed different forms of Sankirtan, right? Nam Sankirtan, Sankirtan of the name, Leela Sankirtan, so singing about the Lord's pastimes, Guna Sankirtan, singing about the Lord's qualities, right? Rupa Sankirtan, singing about the Lord's form. And you'll find that in his songs, he very much focuses on Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and also very much focuses on Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Now, he realized that there needed to be some unification and communication between the different branches and aspects of the followers of Lord Chaitanya that were spread out in Vrindavan, in West Bengal, in East Bengal, in Orissa. Of course, there were others as well in South India from Lord Chaitanya's South Indian tour, but there was nobody really having communication between them. And what happens in time is things can get distorted in ways. And he felt that it was a really good idea to have unity among Lord Chaitanya's followers. So he decided that he wanted a big festival in Kechari. And this festival would be on the anniversary of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the world. So this hadn't been celebrated before. I mean, maybe devotees on their personal level in their own homes were celebrating, or with small groups, but not in a big way. Now, in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Srila Prabhupada wanted all of the devotees to go to Mahaprabhu's birthplace, Sri Mayapurdam, for the anniversary celebration of Lord Chaitanya's appearance every year. And he was saying that even if you're busy with so many things, to take time off and do that. So, of course, we still have a big festival in Mayapur every year. We also now are having a big festival in Kartik every year, during Kartik in Vrindavan every year. So these are the two big festivals that ISKCON has in India, the festival for Gaur Purnima in Mayapur and the festival for Kartik in Vrindavan. Anyway, he organized this Kechari festival, and those who were followers of Lord Chaitanya came from all over to participate. And the leading disciples of the six Goswamis attended. And there he installed 6 deities, including deities of Lord Chaitanya. So this was the first formal installation of deities of Lord Chaitanya. And it's really interesting because the Goswamis, for example, they had met Lord Chaitanya after he took sannyas. and they were not there in his pastimes in Navadvip. But the deities that were installed there in Kechari were deities like we worship in ISKCON, where we're worshiping Lord Chaitanya in his householder life in Navadvip. So there were many of the devotees who hadn't heard so much of these pastimes, or if they had met Lord Chaitanya, had not met him during these pastimes, or if they had served under someone who had met Lord Chaitanya, they had not been part of these pastimes. So that was a very important mood. And at this Kechari festival, the leader of the whole festival, although it was organized by Narottama, was Janava Thakurani. Janava Thakurani was the widow of Lord Nityananda. She traveled with her stepson. Nityananda had married Janava and her sister, Vasudha, and this was Vasudha's son, Virabhadra, who was given initiation by Janava Thakurani. Janava Thakurani was also called Ishwari. She actually was, at that point, she became the acharya, the leading acharya of the whole Gaudiya Sampradaya. And she also gave Diksha in the Gaudiya Sampradaya to many disciples, both men and women. So she gave some lectures at this festival. She also cooked at the festival and distributed prasad with her own hand, only eating after everyone else had eaten. She inaugurated a holy festival. Gaur Purnima, Lord Chaitanya's appearance anniversary, appears right at the same time as Holi. She inaugurated a big holy festival at the festival. And Narottama Dasa Thakura's songs, many of them were sung publicly for the first time at this festival. Now, what's reported in the biographies of Narottama Dasa Thakura is that while the kirtan was going on, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Thakur, and so many of the devotees who were no longer physically on earth actually manifested during the kirtan. And so Janava saw her husband, Lord Nityananda, again. All the devotees saw Lord Chaitanya. And actually, kirtan, maybe not in easily manifest form, but when we chant the holy name of the Lord is present in his name. The Lord is actually present in his name. And if we are chanting with love and attention, we'll feel that. We'll feel I'm actually in the presence of the Lord. So again, maybe we won't see, maybe when we chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, we won't see Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda dancing around us, but actually they're present. And of course, many great devotees, even from higher planets, may come and attend. Now, Narottama Dasa Thakura, he wasn't born in a Brahmana family, as we say. Oh, we should say one other thing about the festival. It was Narottama's cousin Santosh who financed the festival and organized the festival, because he had in the meantime become the king, since Narottama Dasa Thakura was not interested in being the king. He also was a disciple of Narottama Dasa Thakura. You know, it's interesting. Sometimes we think that in order to be fully Krishna conscious, in order to be really spiritually serious, I have to live a life like Narottama Dasa Thakura. I have to renounce the world, not get married, not have a job, just live as a renunciate. But here we see that the service provided by a person such as Santos, who was a king, who was very financially well off, who was very connected, who had many people who could do things for him, was just as valuable, because Narottama Dasa Thakura couldn't have done this festival without this practical help from Santos. So all of the four ashrams, the brahmacharya or student ashram, the grahastha or family ashram, the vanaprastha retired, the sannyas or renounced, and the four varnas, those who are teachers, those who are priests, scientists, philosophers, the kshatriyas, those who are the government rulers, the vaishyas, those who are farmers or mercantile or in banking or business, and the shudras, those who are the entertainers, doing all the arts and crafts, all the tradespersons, all the craftspersons, doing all the practical work in society. So these people all work together, and regardless of what kind of work we're doing, and regardless of what stage of life we're in, everything we're doing can be a practical, valuable service. Now, one thing that Narottama Dasa Thakura's preaching did, and his songs also, preaching through songs, is they systematized Gaudiya theology in simple Bengali. And of course, we're going to look at one of these songs shortly, but we sing these songs in our Hare Krishna movement regularly. Now, there were some brahmanas, some jati brahmanas, some caste brahmanas, who said that Narottama, having not been born in a brahmana family, could not initiate disciples. And they said, he didn't get a Brahmin thread. He's not born in a Brahmin family. How can he be initiating disciples? And so one king was instigated by the local Jati Brahmanas, the caste conscious Brahmanas, to try to defame Narottama Dasa Thakura. So the king sent some Brahmin scholars to debate with Narottama. And some of Narottama's very scholarly Brahminical disciples heard about this, and they pretended to be shopkeepers in the town where Narottama Dasa Thakura was staying. And when these great learned scholars came to debate with Narottama, the shopkeepers called them over. Oh, do you want to buy this? And the shopkeepers, we weren't really shopkeepers, they spoke in perfect Sanskrit, and they defeated these scholars philosophically. And the scholars said, "Wow, if the shopkeepers here are such great Sanskrit scholars, we're not even going to go meet with their leader, Narottama." They went back to the king and they said, "We have been defeated by Narottama Dasa Thakura." This is the anniversary of his appearance, but it's said that the way that he left this world was that he went to take a bath and his disciples were bathing him, and that in that process he actually melted into the river. It is also said that sometime before that, when he was planning to depart, he went into a deep meditative trance, and people saw a golden, subtle Brahmin thread on his body to defeat these naysayers. So there's many very wonderful songs by Narottama Dasa Thakura that we sing regularly in our Hare Krishna movement. I want to just mention a few of them. There's, of course, Hari Hari Bipale, which Srila Prabhupada told Yamuna is one of his favorite songs. There's Gauranga Bolite Habi. There's Nitai Pada Kamala, which is what we're going to meditate on. And one of my favorites, Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha, which is the name of the song is Nama Sankirtan. I really like Srila Prabhupada's recording of that. And then the song that starts with Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Koramore, very, very song that's sung. I know in some ISKCON temples that have Nitai deities, that's the song they sing when after they finish singing Brahma Samhita when the deities open. So I want to go to a meditation on Nitai Pada Kamala. Some of you have seen that I have also showed this on the appearance day of Lord Nityananda. Okay, so this is our song. Nitai Pada Kamala, Koti Chandra Shushitala, Jai Chayai Jagata Jurai, Heno Nitai Binay Bai, Radha Krishna Payatinai, Drida Kori Dhara Nitai Pai. Se Sambandha Nahi Jar, Brita Janma Gelotar, Se Pasu Boradorachar. Nitai na bolio muke, majilo samsada suke, vijakule ki koribe tar. Ahankara mata hoya nitai pada pasarira, asachare sacha korimani. Nitayer karuna habe, braje Radha Krishna pabe, daro nite charana dukani. Nitayer charana sacha, taha sevakya nita. Nitai pada sada kora asa, naratama bara duke, nitai more korosuke. Rako Ranga Charaneta Pasa. So we're going to go through a meditation on this about how Lord Nityananda is actually an incarnation of Lord Balaram. That the various manifestations of the Lord that create this material world are his plenary portions. So we do have sound starting on the next slide. So I'm going to ask if people can tell me in the chat whether or not you hear it. Nitai pada kamala, koti chandra. Okay, very good. So the lotus feet of Nityananda are a shelter where one will get the soothing moonlight of millions of moons. So, right, the sun, this is a picture of Lord Nityananda's lotus feet with the marks on it. And We all know that after a long day of work, it's nice to come under the moonlight. Today, of course, is a full moon. Those who've seen the picture of Radhagolokananda today, you notice that the backdrop is a huge full moon, and the deities are dressed in white and blue. It's said that when it's a full moon, we'd like to dress the Lord in white. And when it's a new moon, we dress them in dark colors. So they go out and blend into the moonlight. And this soothing, Krishna says, I am the light of the moon. And this wonderful moonlight, it's soothing and cool and refreshing. Oops. Just Srila Prabhupada, in commenting on this verse, he says that the whole world is suffering under the blazing fire of material existence. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that our great desire to enjoy this world is a covering that in a human life, it's like fire. It's like smoke over fire. In an animal life, it's like dust on a mirror. And in plant life, it's like the womb covering the embryo. And he says this desire to enjoy this world, it's ever burning, it's blazing like fire. We find that we're not satisfied in this world, no matter what we have. What do they say? However much money someone has, they always want 10% more. We always want the newest things, right? The newest phone, the newest car, the newest this, the newest fashion. I need to get more of this and more of that and more of the other thing. And in the meantime, of course, we're harming the earth and we're putting ourselves in a situation where we're just never satisfied. We think if I do this, I'll be happy. If I do this, I'll be pleased. And we may be a little bit happy for a short amount of time. But overall, we find again, then there's another desire and another desire and another desire. And we're often disappointed by what we get. We get to some position, we get some fame, we get some accomplishments, and we're like, is that it? Is there nothing more than that? Did I work so hard for this? Is it really worth it? And just this constant blazing fire, which can be satisfied by the cooling moon of Lord Nityananda. So here Narottama Dasa Thakura is speaking from his own realization, from his own understanding, right? His family were great devotees of the Lord. They weren't ordinary materialistic people. In fact, they had prayed for a long time to get a son like Narottama. But at the same time, he could see, his parents were wealthy, they were influential, they were powerful. And he was able to see materialistic opulence and he was able to see materialistic accomplishment. And he's like, that isn't going to be satisfying. And when he took shelter of Lord Nityananda, when he took shelter of Lord Nityananda through his guru, Lokanath Goswami, who's the representative, guru is always representative of Lord Nityananda, then he felt complete relief. Now, one should not mistake that this relief that one feels means that there won't be any external difficulties. It doesn't mean that you won't get into a car accident or, break your arm or lose your job or something like that. It doesn't mean like that. It doesn't mean that everything in the external part of your life is all going to be perfect. What it means is that you won't identify with this world. You won't identify with your body. You won't identify with what's going on in the world. And therefore, the difficulties of material life will not touch you. There may be difficulties, but you won't actually be suffering from them. You'll be existing on another platform. So this is what we say, to take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Ultimately, what this means for all of us is to surrender to the Lord in the form of spiritual master. Spiritual master gives us entrance into the line of the particular parampara in which we take initiation, gives us a spiritual process by which to awaken our real self, gives us instructions by which to pacify our mind, and gives us the mean by which we can enter into a state of enlightenment. By the way, all the text in this PowerPoint, it's all from Srila Prabhupada's personal purport on an explanation of this song of Narottama Dasa Thakura. So here, Narottama Dasa Thakura is saying that if we don't take shelter of Lord Nityananda, we will not be able to understand Radha and Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says this wonderful sentence here. This Krishna consciousness movement is for approaching Radha Krishna to be associated with the Supreme Lord in his sublime pleasure dance. That is the aim of Krishna consciousness. So when we take up a process of spiritual life, generally our reasons for taking up that process, according to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, is we're hoping that by a spiritual process we'll become a better enjoyer of the world. We'll get better money, we'll get better health, we'll get better status. We want artha, we want some kind of benefit in this world, or we want to get rid of some kind of suffering. We want to get rid of disease, we want to get rid of poverty, we want to get rid of loneliness, whatever. So either, or we ultimately want liberation from the sufferings of this world. So one generally takes up a spiritual process, either to try to enjoy the world or to get liberation from the world. Sometimes people take up a spiritual process, not for one of those two reasons, but out of curiosity. They want to understand philosophy. They want to understand the meaning of life. They want to understand who is God. They want to understand something of themselves. And it could be a mixture of that. Maybe they want to be happy in the world and understand philosophy. Maybe they want to be liberated from suffering and understand philosophy. And then there's a very small, rare group of people who take to the worship of personal God, of Krishna as the supreme person, because they have already realized the impersonal feature of God. And they want to go further. They want to go deeper. They want to experience not just bliss. They're already liberated, and they want to experience love. But what Narottama Dasa Thakura is establishing here is that the aim of spiritual life, it goes beyond any of those reasons from which we can come. So we may come wanting to enjoy the world. We may come wanting to be liberated from the world. We may come wanting to satisfy our philosophical curiosity. We may come even because we actually want something higher than liberation. We want to go beyond a liberated state. But he's saying the real purpose of taking up spiritual life is to revive our original form and relationship and pleasure with the Supreme Lord. Now, the height of that expression is in the pleasure dance, the Supreme Lord's pleasure dance with the cowherd girls of Vrindavana. That is the highest expression of love. Of course, Prabhupada saying this doesn't necessarily mean that everybody will want to be a cowherd girl and dance with Krishna. So you see in this painting, there are also peacocks and there are trees. So there are devotees who are like, oh, I'd like to be a flower there. I'd like to be a tree, or I'd like to be one of Krishna's friends who plays with him, or I'd like to be one of the mothers and fathers there who sees Krishna as their beloved child. Or I'd like to be someone who's serving Krishna, who's carrying his buffalo horn for him, who's taking care of the cows for him. So we each have our own individual desire, as very, very nicely explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking to Ramananda Roy, and also explained again in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So each of us has a particular liking eternally, without beginning, for a particular way that we want to serve Krishna. So when Prabhupada said to be associated with the Supreme Lord and his sublime pleasure dance, that doesn't negate the individual desire of every living entity of specifically how they want to be with Krishna. But the point is that this is our goal. This is the purpose of Lord Chaitanya's movement, and Narottama Dasa Thakura is so clearly establishing this purpose in his songs. So, Dirakori Dara Nitai Pai, Daro is to hold, Drita is firmly. So to firmly hold the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. So it's not really very easy to enter into these sublime relationships of love with the Supreme Lord. And it's so easy for an ordinary conditioned soul to misunderstand them. So therefore we need this guidance from Lord Nityananda, as Prabhupada goes on to comment that Nitya means eternal and Ananda means pleasure, that we are all looking for pleasure. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. We are all looking for pleasure, right? Because this Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, this is the actual form of pleasure of the Lord, and Ananda Maya Biasat. We are all naturally pleasure-seeking beings. As Prabhupada explains in the preface to the Nectar Devotion, everything we do, even things that are not good for us, are things that we're doing to try to experience some kind of pleasure. But the real pleasure, Narottama Dasa Thakura is making the point, is to be found in the Lord, to be found in our relationship with the Supreme Lord. So sambandha means to have a relationship. So we want to have a relationship with the Supreme Lord, especially in his very merciful form of Lord Nityananda. And if we haven't done that, Vritta Janma, Janma means our birth, that it's just been useless. You know, it's interesting. So today was the 11th birthday of one of my granddaughters and my youngest son's daughter. And yesterday was the 26th birthday of my oldest son's third son. And I've thought a lot, many times, so why do we celebrate birthdays, right? Why do we celebrate birthdays? Because human life is so valuable. Because to take birth as a human being is a very, very special birth. There's so many creatures on this planet, so many animals, so many plants, so many insects. Right here at New Goloka, it's pretty common that spiders come into my room. Right? I was traveling for a few months last year, and before I came back, my granddaughter cleaned my room, and she said, "I got rid of 20 spiders, Grandma." So many living beings who all have their little lives, and they all, from their perspective, their lives are important. But we give special importance to human life, don't we? Don't we? I mean, we're driving and there are bugs splattering on our windshield, and nobody has a funeral for them. Nobody has a birthday celebration for the spiders. I mean, even when someone has a pet, a dog or a cat, there's not usually, maybe some people do, but generally there's not like a whole funeral or a whole burial or something like that. And people aren't celebrating at least again, most people, they're not celebrating their dog's birthday party. Huh? But human life, very important. I mean, how we regard human birthdays, how we take care of a human body even after the soul has left. So every culture has respectful rituals to deal with the human body. Because in the human body, we're able to understand spirituality. Every human culture has some form of religion, some sort of higher philosophy, some form of dealing with a higher reality. And that doesn't exist in the animal society. You'll see dolphins having a prayer session. And in this human life, we want to make contact with the Supreme Lord, especially in his form of Lord Nityananda, the original guru who's full of mercy and compassion. So pasu means animal. And if we don't connect with Lord Nityananda, if we don't bring out our spirituality, then what is our life made out of? Prabhupada's saying here, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, which is done in all the species of life. Maybe we'll do it with poetry and drama, but it's not really different. We want to go beyond that to enlightenment. Because as Prabhupada comments, if we don't say the name of Nityananda, eternal happiness of the Lord, then all we have is false material happiness. So many things that we want that we never get, things that we get and that disappoint us, things that we get and we love them and then they're gone. And none of it touches the soul. None of the things we get, none of the things we achieve actually touches the real self. So we might think that Vidya Kule, our knowledge, our family, but samsara sukhe, it's just the happiness of being in this world. And we think, well, if I have a happy family, if I have a good education, I have a high status job, but we get all these things, right? Here in America, it's much easier to get these things. So many people are eager to come to America. Our present government is eager to throw out all the people who want to come to America because they want all of these things. But even you have all these things, and still it's empty. It's empty. It doesn't touch the real self. It doesn't touch the real soul. Now, of course, it's nice to have a happy family and good education and good job, but if you only have that and you don't also have a connection with the Lord, it's useless. If you have a connection with the Lord, Prabhupada would talk about if you have so many zeros, you put a one in front of it, it's very valuable. So if you have a first-class family, you have a first-class education, you have a first-class job, you have some status in society, and you take that and you use it in Krishna service, then you can do wonderful, wonderful things in the world. But to have those things, thinking those things by themselves are going to what's give me satisfaction, that's not going to happen. As Prabhupada goes on to comment, death is going to come. And when death comes, we don't take that with us. We don't take our money. We don't take our education. We don't take our job. Again, we become a little baby who doesn't know how to talk. And, then we accumulate all those things all over again, just to lose them again and accumulate them again and lose them again and accumulate them again and lose them again. And they never really give us deep satisfaction, even when we have them. So this is a painting of Jagai and Madai, the criminals that Lord Nityananda was preaching to, and who tried to kill him. And then Lord Chaitanya coming to rescue Lord Nityananda, and both of them, Jagai and Madai, surrendered to Lord Chaitanya. And Prabhupada's noting here, ahankare, I can do everything myself. I can do everything myself. I can, what do I need, God? What do I need, Guru? I've got it all together. I'm clever. I'm wonderful. Okay, I'll have religion on the side, a little bit here and there, but to dedicate myself, not really necessary, right? And here again, we have this picture of Jagai and Madai. And Prabhupada is saying that then we're going to accept asachere satya korimani. I will think what is false is truth. I will think I am this physical body. This world is mine to enjoy. All of these things are meant for my enjoy. And none of that's true. We'll accept an illusion as if it's true. And you can't be happy in an illusion, right? You might play a game of Monopoly and win a lot of properties and money, but when you're finished with the game, you're still in the same old house and you still have the same funds in your bank account and nothing's really changed. So in the same way, trying to enjoy something in this world, we, the soul, don't become enriched by that. But if we're thinking like that, well, I can just do everything for myself. What do I need Lord Nityananda for? Then we're going to accept false things as true. However, if we take shelter of Lord Nityananda, Narottama Dasa Thakura is telling us, then we will get the highest thing. We will get entrance into the ultimate reality, not just some swarga heaven where we have a greater standard of material enjoyment, but actual enjoyment for the soul in relationship with Krishna. So Narottama Dasa Thakura is saying, we should firmly grasp the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. And Srila Prabhupada is writing on this, that if we're really serious to go back to home, back to Godhead, to our real home, to where we actually belong, to what is our actual nature, our actual relationship, our actual family, our actual friends, forever, then we should take shelter of Lord Nityananda. So Narottama Dasa Thakura says that Nityananda's feet, their truth. And Prabhupada comments on this. Why is not Narottama Das saying this? Saying this because we've had so many shelters in this world. So many people promise so many things. Oh, if I just marry this person, then I'll be happy. I just have these children, then I'll be happy. I just have this job, then I'll be happy. I just make this money, then I'll be happy. I just take this course, I just read this book, I just do this thing, then I'll be happy. And we may think Lord Nityananda's lotus feet will also be like that. But Narottama is telling us no, they're not an illusion, they're actually a fact. And we want to serve those feet. And Prabhupada's saying, very nice, that if you touch something electric, you become also electrified. Sometimes I get asked about direct and indirect service, but Prabhupada would say everything's direct. Wherever you touch an electrical line, you're going to get electricity. There's no direct or indirect. And Prabhupada's saying here, anyone who takes the service of Nityananda becomes eternal. Now, we're already eternal, but in other words, to realize our eternal nature. And without realizing our eternal nature, we cannot serve the eternal. We have to realize that we are the same nature of God. And by following Lord Nityananda, we realize that. We realize, oh, I am a soul. I have the same nature of God. I am an eternal being. And this brings us great joy. Actually, we, the soul, are naturally fully joyful. And Nityananda, eternal happiness, when we come in touch with the personality of eternal happiness, we also realize that we are also eternally happy. So one may think here that Narottama Dasa Thakura is asking for material happiness. Like one can come to the Lord, oh, my Lord, my back hurts. I don't have enough money in the bank. Please give me happiness. That's not what he's asking. He's asking for real spiritual happiness. He's saying, I am experiencing misery by feeling spiritually separated, and I want real spiritual happiness. And therefore, keep me close to your lotus feet. So I hope you enjoyed this meditation on this song of Narottama Dasa Thakura on the anniversary of his appearance. And also I picked this particular song because I felt it had just been the appearance day of Lord Nityananda on Friday, which again, we weren't able to celebrate in person. So I thought we'd have a combination of a meditation on Lord Nityananda and a meditation on the songs of Narottama Dasa Thakura. So we have about 10 minutes. We can have, if there's questions, comments, discussions, and Aditya Narayan Prabhu, if anyone raises their hand, you can do the spotlight side by side.
Yes, thank you so
Yes.
much, Mataji, for such a wonderful uh, narration. Like you started off, and in like such a concise way, you get the entire life of Narottama Das Thakur, starting from his family, and then like he's going to Vrindavan, accepting Lokanath Goswami as guru, and then coming all the way to his preaching, and then his disappearance. I mean, it was very excellent that in 30 minutes we got like the whole overview. And
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I reread his biography for the last few days.
can I ask which book do you refer? Is it
The one that I read was an old one. I can't remember who wrote it. There's a new one by my god sister Sitala.
yes?
That one I have now. I have it as a Kindle book also, but I have the physical book in India in Vrindavan, and yeah, I devoured that book when I was last in Vrindavan. That's the one I would really recommend.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the entire overview of the Narottama Das Thakura and then coming to this meditation. It's always like so beautiful to meditate on
Oh, thank you.
Nityananda through the bhajan of Narottama Das Thakura.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Maybe I should make some PowerPoints of some of his other songs. If anyone has a question, they can also
Yes.
write it in the chat. So you can write in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask out loud, or anything you want to discuss or bring up.
I saw Vishesh, did you raise your hand?
Yes, Hare Krishna
Please go ahead.
Mataji. Please accept my obeisances. Thank you for such a nice class. I just wanted to understand, what it really means to take shelter of Nityananda, what it really means in practical actions.
Hmm.
Just,
Well, then I guess I'd have to show you the rest of my PowerPoint.
no, I just want
How to
something.
take shelter of Lord Nityananda. Um, the main ways that we take shelter of Lord Nityananda is that Lord Nityananda is the original guru, and Prabhupada says guru is not a particular man, guru is a principle. And the idea is that we talked about this a little bit this morning. Whatever living being becomes our guru, one can have, of course, one Diksha guru, but many Shiksha gurus. They should be, if they're actually guru, representing Lord Nityananda. So the guru teaches us the process for spiritual enlightenment, the process for self-realization, and we follow that then. To take shelter means to follow, to actually follow those instructions. Just like, sometimes, of course, I guess we don't do this very much anymore with GPS, but it used to be if you wanted to go someplace, you might be following another car, right? They're going
Mhm.
someplace and you follow behind them. At least some of you who are a little bit older remember when we would follow a car to its destination.
Yeah,
I suppose we still do that sometimes. Or sometimes there's I was once visiting Hawaii and my god sister offered to take me on a hike. So we were going up this mountain. It was really muddy, I remember. And I was like watching her feet and just following her feet, following, where she was going. And that's also taking shelter. Okay, I'm following you. I'm what you're saying I'm going to be doing. So that's given through the parampara. It's given through the medium of guru that we actually follow those instructions. Not, as Prabhupada said, to keep guru like a pet. We're, oh yes, yes, I have my guru. You see my picture of my guru right here? Here's my guru. Well, do you actually do anything? Oh no, no, I just have the picture, right?
thank
So
you. Thank you so
that,
much, Mataji.
that's what, is that all right?
Yep, thank you so much, Mataji.
Yes. And I would say also to take Lord Nityananda's mood. Lord Nityananda's mood is to give spiritual life to everybody,
Mhm.
not to just, oh, I have my own enlightenment. I'm going to take it and run. Like Bir Krishna Maharaj once said to me, not that we just grab our Krishna prema and run, but that we also try to help others.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions? I'd like to ask. Mati, I had one question, if that's okay.
Sure, of course.
So I have always thought about this, how you mentioned that, giving the example of Narottama Das Thakur, how he burned his hand, and the same about the Brahmana in Nectar of Devotion. And I always wondered, like, does the body actually become spiritual, or is that something that we cannot understand? That how through the meditation the body is actually getting burnt? Like, is it like they accept like a spiritual form, or is that something that we are not at this stage, like at least I not at stage to understand?
Um, this phenomena holds true even on a lower level. So let's just look at things on a material level. Let's put aside the spiritual for a moment. The body and the mind are very connected. And the most glaring proof of this is what we call the placebo effect. So about 30% of people will get a reduction in symptoms or even an alleviation of a disease if they take something that they think is a medicine that isn't. Yeah, I'm sure you're all familiar with this. And so any kind of drug testing always has to have control with the placebo. And the best is if it's what's called a double blind. So neither the doctors nor the patient knows who's getting the real medicine and who's getting the placebo. Because 30% of people are going to get well with a placebo. By the way, this is even true for placebo surgery. So there are people like, it's been true for knee replacement. So they'll have people get a sham surgery where they just like make an incision and sew it up. And they told them that they've gotten a knee replacement and they didn't. And 30% of people will be completely cured by getting this placebo surgery. I mean, this is just a completely well-established medical fact. There's also what we call the nocebo effect. So if some doctor puts some cream on your arm and says this might give you a rash, you might get a rash even if the cream actually doesn't have the potency to give you a rash. So if we hear something from an authority that we believe on faith, that if our mind believes it on faith, it does affect our physical body. That's absolutely a fact. And it will affect our physical body in terms of really gross things like, does a wound heal and do we get a rash and does bleeding stop? So if that's the case between the mind, which is subtle matter, and the gross body, why would it not be the case with the spiritual as well? And of course, the main interface we see is what Sri Rupa Goswami calls the sattvika bhavs, where that when one is experiencing spiritual emotions, that these spiritual emotions cause a state called sattva in the heart, not sattva gun, which then mixes with the prana, the life air of the body. And depending on which part of the prana it interfaces with, it will cause some symptoms like crying or shivering or hair standing on end or change of color or choking of the voice. So where the spiritual symptoms causes some change in the physical body. So that's true for all the devotees. Srila Prabhupada often talks about, though, how that if we use our body completely in spiritual life, that our body will have a spiritual effect. And he talks about putting a hot iron rod in a fire. Of course, that was in a day when blacksmiths were very common and everybody saw hot iron rods put into fire. I mean, now you've got to go like to the village of yesteryear and at the state fair to see that. We take our kids there every year as part of our field trip. And you see the blacksmiths and they put the iron rod in the fire and it becomes red hot. And then if you touch it to anything, it will ignite as if it was actually fire. I mean, we can have a little bit of an idea of this with cooking, that you put the pot on the fire and the pot becomes as hot as the fire, even though the pot is not fire. And so when one uses one's body fully in spiritual life, then the elements of that body act spiritually. They become spiritually energized, which is why Srila Prabhupada says that we don't usually cremate the bodies of saintly persons, that usually those bodies are buried because the spiritual energy of those bodies remains in that place. And such is true not only in our Vaishnava tradition, it's true in every religion in the world. I mean, there's a number of, say, Roman Catholic saints where the body's never even decomposed. There's one where there's like this fragrant liquid that's coming even decades or centuries after their death from their dead body, and people will take it and get healed of diseases from it. So there's this phenomena that the body does become spiritualized and it acts in a different way. Again, even on a material level, we can understand this, that a person has an aura or an energy about them. Yes, that affects others subtly. Like if you walk into a room where people have just been arguing, you can feel that energy, even if they don't say anything to you. Or you walk into a room where people have been in a peaceful, loving, joyful atmosphere, and you can pick up on that energy on the subtle level. It affects you. So if that's true materially, why wouldn't it be true spiritually? Does that answer your question?
Yes, Mother. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, it is already 6 o'clock. If there's one or two other questions we could take, and then we will end. Thank you for joining us virtually online, by the way. in this inclement weather?
Thank you, Mother. I'm Swarna Gauri Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I joined it late, Amma. Thank you so much for the wonderful katha I'm hearing. Aditya Narayana Prabhu's question and your answer. Thank you so much, Amma. Hare Krishna.
Okay, well, I think we'll end here. Again, thank you for facilitating this to happen virtually. Anything good in this presentation is from Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas. Any mistakes here are mine. Please take the good and leave aside the bad. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.